It's great to be in Washington and look out into a crowd and see a lot of friendly faces. It's not usually what we see in Washington. We're here doing the Lord's work in the devil's city, but it's good to be with all of you. I'd like to update you on some of the legislative and political battles we face, as well as our opponent's game plan for the 2008 elections. Everyone in this room will agree that there's no more basic right than the right to self-defense. And that's not a right that's given to you by the government. It's a God-given right. But unfortunately, some people don't see it that way. So we have to go all over the country reaffirming it and doing things like passing right to carry laws. And your NRA has been very successful. 40 states now recognize honest people's right to defend themselves. Put that another way, that means more than half of the U.S. population is safer from violent crime because of all of you. Thank you. Researchers estimate that if the states without right to carry had it, every year 1,500 murders would not happen. 4,000 rapes would not happen. 11,000 robberies and 60,000 aggravated assaults would not happen. Making people victims is wrong on any level. All Americans deserve the right to defend themselves, and we're going to make sure that every American has it. We're also working to pass the Castle Doctrine nationwide. Here's why that's so important. In too many places, the law says if a criminal attacks you, you have a legal duty to retreat. And if you do fight back, you can go to jail and get sued by the criminal or the criminal's family. I say they have that backwards. If you're attacked and you defend yourself, it's time for the law to be on your side and not on the criminal's side. The Castle Doctrine is now law in 19 states, and we're going to continue to push this all over the country because, again, this is too important not to. Next, I want to give you a report about New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. He's America's latest self-appointed billionaire gun control zealot. He's convinced more than 240 mayors into signing on to his coalition against illegal guns. As if illegal guns weren't already illegal enough. But his coalition of mayors puts more than half of the U.S. urban population right under his thumb. And he's hurting innocent people. Here's one thing he does. He sends his private detectives into gun shops in any state he wants. His boys, who aren't even real law enforcement officers, pretend to be criminal gun traffickers. They lie on the forms and do everything they can to get mom and pop gun stores to violate the law. Then Bloomberg does what he does best. He goes grandstanding for the news cameras and vilifies gun dealers while his lawyers haul him into New York City courts to be tried by New York City judges. Everyone knows that a small business can't survive an attack from a billionaire mayor and even their big city budgets. Now you multiply that by 240 mayors, and Mike Bloomberg, who's just one New York City gun hater, can bankrupt gun shops all over the nation. The latest thing he's done just earlier this week, he had another press conference, which is not surprising. This time he did it with Frank Lautenberg to support federal legislation. Again, this guy's the mayor of New York, but he pretends to be, for some reason, America's mayor. So he stands with a U.S. senator to support federal legislation to allow any future attorney general, think Janet Reno, to arbitrarily deny any American who's on any secret government list the right to own a firearm with no due process. Think about that. We have laws in this country. We've heard some great talks today about the Constitution. We heard some great lessons yesterday. No due process. Just because you're on a list doesn't mean you're a criminal, but that's how Bloomberg and a lot of these people want to treat you. So I have a challenge for Mayor Mike. If he truly wants to do something about crime, change the name of his coalitions from Mayors Against Illegal Guns to Mayors Against Criminals. Then prosecute those criminals with the laws you have on the books and leave all of us and all these honest gun dealers alone. This kind of harassment and intimidation is just part of our opponent's political playbook for 2008. So it's important that you understand who the players are, how the game has changed, and how they plan to win it. Congress is now controlled by career politicians who voted against your gun rights for 20, 30, 40, even 50 years. I'm talking about the Ted Kennedys and Chuck Schumers and Dianne Feinsteins. You know who they are. They're the dinosaurs of gun control. They were on the road to extinction and should have been fossils by now. But they changed. And here's how they did it. In 2000, you remember well, they said, we hate guns. Well, that didn't work out too well for them. So in 2004, they said, we don't hate guns. We really love to hunt. Well, that didn't work out too well for them either. So now it's really like guns, what guns? We don't want to talk about it. But even Bill Clinton said that Al Gore lost the White House because of the Second Amendment. And you can add John Kerry and Tom Daschle to that list. Yes, Al Gore won an Oscar for The Inconvenient Truth, but he lost the White House over that inconvenient Second Amendment. So they changed their playbook. They helped get a lot of mostly pro-gun congressmen and senators elected to Congress. Not because they changed their position on the issues. They just wanted to be back in power. And it worked. You saw the results of the 2006 elections. So now we're at halftime. And for the next 14 months, they'll do everything they can to divide us from our natural allies. They'll try to drive a wedge between us and hunters, between us and police, between us and union members. They're going to try to break up that winning coalition that beat Al Gore and John Kerry. It's that simple. They're going to send a message. Wait. There's no gun threat here, but let's look at health care and the economy and look at Iraq. So that all of our friends, all of our natural allies, our law enforcement, our unions, our hunters, our sportsmen won't get energized and, more importantly, won't get registered and they won't vote next year. If they can do this in the second half, they can build on their numbers in the House and Senate, and then touchdown, they get their president elected, and she starts trampling on our rights. Then you're going to have an anti-gun president, an anti-gun Congress, and anti-gun appointees at every federal level running every federal agency. And yes, they'll be popping champagne corks over at the United Nations. That's their agenda. But you're not going to hear much about it over the next 14 months. Oh, you might hear we support common sense gun laws, which means gun bans and gun registration and gun taxes and gun rationing and fees. And the Hail Mary of their playbook, the day a terrorist attack. And then they have the green light to do it all. So now you know the political lay of the land and that it's an uphill and very difficult climb. You know what our opponent's playbook is for the second half and how they intend to win it. You know the threat comes not just from Washington, D.C., but from the UN, our courts, our state houses, even our town halls. But the power of the NRA is in the hands and in the heart of every NRA member in every community across this great nation. That NRA member, that voter, is always paying attention. That voter speaks up when gun legislation is being considered. And that voter keeps track until Election Day, when duty calls and they have the honor to go in and make that decision at the voting booth. Participating in the process isn't always easy. There's always a temptation to sit back and let the next person do it. There's no immediate reward or gratification in the trenches, just the daily grind of whatever new challenges present themselves day to day or even hour to hour. Folks, this is a numbers game. Every year it seems that these elections get closer and closer and the margins of victory and defeat get smaller. But we can beat our opponents on Election Day if we make sure our friends and our like-minded individuals register to vote. Not next year, but starting right now. You're here because you understand that we face a serious challenge. You were invited because of your outstanding commitment to the values that we hold dear. You know our work is never done. You know these elections are never over, and you understand that every vote counts, and you take that duty seriously. For that, I say thank you. Thank you for what you've done, And thank you for what I know you're going to continue to do. Together, we are Freedom's team, and together we can win. Thank you very much for being here.